2023 dan panitia, khusus kepada tim Humas, Sekretariat ST 2023 dan BPS Provinsi Bali yang telah mempersiapkan acara ini. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang dan salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Semoga kita senantiasa dalam keadaan sehat dan prima, serta selalu dalam lindungan Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, Tuhan Yang Maha Esa. Teman-teman sekalian, sebagaimana kita ketahui, kita akan melaksanakan sensus pertanian untuk yang ke-7 kalinya di Indonesia pada tahun 2023 nanti. Serupa dengan sensus-sensus lainnya, sensus pertanian dilaksanakan setiap 10 tahun sekali. Sedangkan tujuan daripada sensus pertanian adalah untuk memotret kondisi pertanian beserta dengan berbagai perubahan yang terjadi pada sektor tersebut. Berbagai persiapan pun telah dilakukan untuk menyesuaikan sensus pertanian tahun 2023. Kegiatan yang dilakukan dalam rangka persiapan ST 2023 di tahun 2021 meliputi uji coba 1, uji coba 2, dan gladi kotor. Dan tentunya sudah banyak saran dan masukan yang telah didapat melalui kegiatan-kegiatan tersebut. Tentunya saran dan masukan tersebut menjadi sangat berharga untuk perbaikan dan penyempurnaan pelaksanaan sensus pertanian 2023. Teman-teman sekalian, pertemuan kali ini menjadi semakin spesial karena pada akhirnya BPS dan FAU untuk pertama kalinya dapat bertatap muka secara offline. Sekali lagi saya mengucapkan terima kasih Mas Reza sebagai FAO ID, FAO Indonesia, dan saya atas nama pimpinan BPS mengucapkan terima kasih yang sebesar-besarnya atas dukungannya terhadap kegiatan ini. Dan sensus pertanian 2023 ini telah diawali dengan baik karena dari FAO, baik FAO Bangkok, kemudian FAO Indonesia dan juga FAO Roma telah menyiapkan, saling berkolaborasi menyiapkan acara ini, persiapan sensus pertanian 2003 Indonesia yang akan dilaksanakan Indonesia, yang khususnya dilaksanakan BPS nanti di tahun 2023. Arahan dan bimbingan yang telah diberikan oleh FAO kepada BPS selama ini, terutama mengenai Work Program for the Census of Agriculture 2020, juga turut memperkaya substansi pelaksanaan ST 2023. Semua hubungan baik yang terjalin selama ini antara BPS dan FAO semoga dapat terus dipertahankan dan dipererat sampai dengan berakhirnya sensus pertanian 2023 nanti sebagai rangkaian adalah sampai dengan mudah-mudahan sampai dengan tahun 2024 nanti sebagai tahun terakhir pelaksanaan sensus pertanian nanti masih kita berkoordinasi, berkolaborasi kuat secara erat, dan mungkin ini akan menjadi momen yang penting untuk perbaikan statistik pertanian di Indonesia. Bapak, Ibu, dan teman-teman sekalian, saya melihat rangkaian kegiatan yang akan kita lakukan selama 4 hari ke depan cukup padat. Semoga kita semua selalu dalam keadaan sehat dan dapat melaksanakan seluruh rangkaian kegiatan yang telah dijadwalkan. Di antara seluruh rangkaian kegiatan, saya melihat bahwa acara launching Sekretariat ST 2023, theme song dan tagline pada tanggal 16 nanti akan menjadi acara pamungkas atau menjadi acara inti dari seluruh rangkaian kegiatan seminar nasional ini yang nanti akan dihadiri pada tanggal 16 nanti oleh seluruh pimpinan BPS dan juga oleh country director dari FAO Indonesia, juga berserta deputi program untuk FAO. Jadi baru kali inilah pimpinan BPS nanti tanggal 16 akan bertemu secara langsung dengan pemimpin FAO Indonesia, dan ini memang benar-benar sejarah, baru pertama kali ini para petinggi di dua institusi ini bertemu. Ya, mudah-mudahan ini awal baik dalam persiapan dan pelaksanaan sensus pertanian nanti, ya. Jadi sekali lagi saya berharap bahwa ini menjadi harapan utama kita dan juga kita semua agar acara ini dapat berlangsung dengan baik. Sekian dari saya, semoga seminar nasional ST 2023 selama 4 hari ke depan dapat berjalan lancar, sukses, dan bermanfaat untuk penyempurnaan persiapan kegiatan ST 2023. Stay safe dan healthy. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, can we give applause for opening remarks? Thank you. Well, move to the next agenda. We will hear together the opening remarks from Ibu Sangeeta Dube as the Senior Statistician of the FAO Regional Office for the Asia and Pacific. Okay, without further ado, please welcome Ibu Sangeeta Dube. The floor is yours.
Terima kasih. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. As the FAO Regional Statistician for Asia and the Pacific and lead technical officer of FAO's Technical Cooperation Project with Indonesia on the Agriculture Census, it is with my deepest appreciation that I thank you for inviting me to be with you here this week in the National Seminar on the Indonesian Census of Agriculture 2023. And a very big thank you and congratulations to the BPS team for holding this important event. This 4-day event focuses on the design and methodology of the Indonesian Census of Agriculture 2023, stock taking of preparations, launching of awareness and advocacy materials, presentation of pilot results, and use of technologies, feedback, discussions, and of course, the very important field visit tomorrow. This national seminar is an important step in going beyond in implementing a cost-effective agriculture census because it also discusses the integrated agriculture survey approach. BPS is in so many ways a world leader in the realm of agriculture statistics, not to mention statistics in general. During my 4 years in Asia and the Pacific, I've seen BPS contribute significantly to discussions and conferences on agriculture statistics, in particular on the use of technology and big data. Your ability to adapt and adopt new approaches, new technologies is impressive beyond words. And I have to confess a certain amount of awe in the quality of your presentation and dissemination. And of course, your kindness and collegiality is second to none. So I consider that just over 2 years ago, we were discussing technical support on the World Census of Agriculture methodology, coordinated by FAO. Indonesia, following the strategic advice of BPS, and when I say Indonesia, I'm talking about government level decisions, you've already moved beyond to commit to an agriculture census that will use the integrated census and survey modality. You've already piloted and implemented integrated agriculture surveys using the AGRIS approach, and you've applied to and been accepted by the Global 50 by 2030 initiative. In such a short period, with a global pandemic, these are not small accomplishments. These are huge. And it's largely a result of the hard work and excellent staff and management at BPS Statistics Indonesia, which fully explains its deserved high reputation nationally, regionally, and globally. This workshop is in small part a wrap-up of this 2-year FAO Technical Cooperation Project. As I mentioned, since the TCP was established in 2019, Indonesia has moved beyond discussions of agriculture censuses and also adopted and piloted the Agri survey in West Java, East Java, and West Tenggara. It's produced farm-based SDG indicators and published the Agriculture SDG 2020 report, conducting full-scale Agri surveys in 2021 and 22 being planned, and is currently on the onboarding process to join the Global 50 by 2030 initiative, along with Cambodia, Nepal, and Bhutan. All of these will help BPS and the country to collect and publish core agriculture statistics, including farm-based SDG indicators, using cost-effective approaches and new technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, Agenda 2030 is a very ambitious agenda with its 17 Sustainable Development Goals, 169 targets, and over 230 SDG indicators, with about 10% of the indicators associated with food and agriculture, and 21 under FAO custodianship. Though we're 9 years into this 15-year agenda, we're already lagging behind in achieving its target as well as monitoring its progress. But this is in no small measure due to COVID-19. Statistics Indonesia will continue to play a significant role regionally and globally and showing other countries and sharing their expertise on how to close these gaps in monitoring progress. Ladies and gentlemen, the pandemic also highlighted the importance of accurate, relevant, and timely data. Now, if you recall, we now get information on COVID-19 cases and fatalities almost on a daily basis. This is a result of international standards and methodologies for statistics in reporting infectious diseases. These international standards have enabled cross-country and intertemporal comparisons. But more important than that, it allows countries to compare where they're at, look at policy responses of their neighbors and countries around the world, and adopt and adapt the best responses, whether they're travel restrictions, social distancing, mask mandate, vaccination programs, vaccination boosters, and targeted lockdowns to contain this pandemic. We've seen how this data has informed action. As we face this new variant, countries are responding at record speed, unseen in the early days of the pandemic. It's also a lesson for us in agriculture statistics of how we can improve the speed and the timeliness of agriculture and food statistics. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to return back, however, to the noteworthy accomplishments by BPS. I've noted several earlier, but I also have to note that even the piloting of agri-surveys was done in the pandemic, respecting the COVID-19 containment constraints. That also provides a huge opportunity for other countries who face similar challenges and delays to learn from your best practices. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to end on the role of technology. Technology did play a role in how quickly you were able to pilot the agri-surveys through combinations of in-person and virtual trainings and workshops. In fact, we're here together today across time zones, in large part due to the innovations induced by COVID-19. When travel constraints have prevented us from meeting in person, the private sector innovated in building and expanding virtual platforms that enabled us, both as colleagues, but also as individuals and families, to meet, if not in person, at least virtually. Technology has also been critical in helping statistics programs to continue in the face of social distancing and internal travel constraints. I've mentioned the use of remote technology for training. It's also been used by countries for the collection of data. And let's not forget that use of computer-assisted personal interviewing with tablets replacing paper questionnaires also reduces the hand-to-hand and the number of hands that actually touch on these questionnaires, thereby also reducing risks of transmission. I'm pleased to note that in the Indonesia Agris and Census pilot, the use of CAPI and tablet-based data collection not only improved timeliness and accuracy, it also supported these COVID-19 containment measures. These technological innovations are here to stay, and even in this realm, BPS is a world leader. In the recent conference, FAO conference called UPCAS, which BPS co-hosted with the Ministry of Agriculture in 2020, we saw presentations from your organization on the use of Earth observation data, both for planning of an agriculture census, but also for the production of agriculture statistics. The future will see us increasingly use these technologies, in part because of their cost effectiveness as the price and cost of image acquisition and processing fall down, but also as a result of the increased capacity and knowledge of countries like Indonesia and organizations like BPS to share their technology use and train others. All I can say is it's been a real pleasure and a real honor to work with all of you. And I hope that these opportunities will continue above and beyond technical cooperation projects. I wish you grand success in this national seminar, and I thank you again for inviting me here to participate. Terima kasih.
Thank you for the very insightful opening remarks from Ibu Sanita Dewi. And for the next agenda, we will give the floor back again to Ibu Sanita Dube to present the WCA 2020. To Ibu Saita, the floor is yours.
So I'm going to put up my slideshow, if that's okay. Now, I did prepare a few slides for this because it takes us through a little bit of a voyage of some of the training we've done earlier in this technical cooperation project. And the focus is on the World Program for the Census of Agriculture 2020, which is a program that's managed by FAO in consultation with experts around the world, including statisticians and organizations such as BPS. So we recall that the agriculture census provides us with key data, core data on the structure of agriculture, the frames for agriculture sample surveys, a benchmark for reconciling other agriculture statistics, a source of SDG indicators, and additional data on non-agriculture production households if the census is widened. The census uses cover agriculture planning and policy, but also go into the private and nonprofit sectors in terms of research, investment, and business decisions. It informs location of the most vulnerable farmers. It's an important input into the national account, and it provides data on not only agriculture, but also environment, food security, the world of work, and gender. This slide is from an earlier presentation on some of the select users and uses of agriculture census data. To this, I've added a sixth category, technology use, and in specific on technology use in the SDG indicators, I want to acknowledge the work that BPS has done in using Earth observation data to build cadastral map and area frames, to produce crop area and production estimates, as well as SDG indicators. But also I want to point to the value of the census data if collected in appropriate ways as ground truth data for other Earth observation data models, not necessarily managed by statistics offices, but often managed by research institutions and other line ministries. And of course, the dissemination of such data is very important when it's presented in geospatial layers or geomaps. We also talked in our first two trainings on the WCA methodology about the two main volumes that have been compiled by the team of FAO based in our headquarters in Rome. Volume 1, which focused on the program concepts and definitions of the Census of Agriculture, and Volume 2 that provided the guidelines. Now, similar to the manner in which reporting on infectious diseases has allowed very effective and coordinated policy responses and the ability to share not only statistics, but insights in terms of how to respond to issues. Consistent data on other sectors is also important to enable this intertemporal and international comparability. And this is one of the reasons why FAO promotes, as do other international organizations, the use of international methodologies. Its use also enables data aggregation and disaggregation down to subnational level and up to regional, sub-regional, and global levels. And of course, it enables knowledge exchange, resource mobilization, and technical assistance, not only from international organizations, but between countries themselves. A really important insight that was shared with me by colleagues from other statistics offices is that despite the fact that definitions, concepts are not always completely 100% accurate in the sense that they can't reflect every reality. They're important because often policymakers will want to change a definition or concept to meet a specific need. And one of the ways in which we can resist that is through the establishment of these international methodologies, which in the end, at least in the statistics world, is approved and passed by the UN Statistics Commission, which is a country-led commission. And of course, it also helps manage data users' pressures for excessive amounts of content that could lead to a response burden that actually undermines our ability to get quality data. I'm pleased to add that my colleagues in headquarters have also recently published web-based resources on Volume 2, which includes access to questionnaires. It includes insights into statistical legislation in other countries. So it basically provides country examples. One thing that's missing in this resource is the presence of Indonesia throughout. And I'd like to make sure, at least in the next WCA, that Indonesia's contributions and achievements and innovations are also part of the web resources that are published. I won't go through in detail. These two boxes provide you with an overview of the topics that are covered in the two core volumes. Within these topics, one of the most important starting points is what is the definition of an agriculture holding, which is the unit of analysis for a census of agriculture, and indeed for most agriculture surveys. And this is where the marriage with the national accounts becomes so important, because the concept of an agriculture household is based on a national accounts concept of own account work. Again, I won't go into details because I know most of you have already seen this and we've discussed, but it does tie back to where the value comes in from having guidelines that have been developed in consultations with experts such as those at BPS. Going back to Volume 1, another highlight is the statistical unit. And when we think of a holding, what makes the agriculture sector unique is, I think, two factors. One is the fact that it actually crosses very, very clearly across the household sector and the business sector because of the notion of own account production. Unlike most other surveys that can be clearly given to either one group, the household sector, institutional sector, or the enterprise sector, that's not the case for an agriculture census. And that means that those of you who work in an agriculture statistics unit have the benefit of having a much, much wider on-the-job training on statistical concepts. On the right-hand side, again, I've looked at some of the themes from Volume 1, which basically cover the content of most agriculture censuses, some of these being optional. And of course, again, Indonesia being the innovator it is, covers almost, if not all of these topics. So what are some of the other highlights? The approach, the methodological approach that's used in Indonesia, it's clear that it's an integrated census survey approach with your adoption of the agri surveys and your entry into the 50 by 2030 initiative. The type of frame is a master sampling frame because you are using a combination of cadastral maps as well as based on Earth observation data, as well as list frames. The linkages between the census of population and the housing census. And the one I really want to highlight is the use of technology, which again puts BPS at the forefront of statistics offices. And this ranges from the use of computer-assisted personal interviewing with tablet-based data collection to the use of Earth observation data for cadastral frames and crop area estimates, but also its potential use in producing ground truth data, to improve dissemination and access of data through your data analytics, and potentially through remote data access and anonymized microdata publication. This particular chart reminds you of the process of census and planning and implementation. It's indicative as opposed to an absolute guideline because, of course, the actual steps may vary slightly depending on the country. And it comes to our final recommendations that we discussed in earlier training: to establish an agriculture census steering committee and core agriculture census office early, to define the methodology and data collection method. I know many of these have already been done, congratulations. To identify and manage the most significant costs, which typically deal with field data collection and interviewing methods. To review past census questionnaires, sample size, methodology, and costs. I know this has also started. And to assess the role of the AGRIS program and the use of technologies. All of these in a space of 2 years. And I hope the audience also contains members from outside BPS, because I can't say enough how impressed I am with how far the statistics team in BPS, the agriculture statistics team has come in BPS in making these recommendations their own and going beyond in implementing, and I have every confidence that, pandemic notwithstanding, Indonesia is going to have a very, very successful agriculture census 2023. So again, I thank you very much for having me as part of this project, for allowing me to work alongside my very, very distinguished colleagues. And I know I can't mention every single name, but I do particularly want to thank Kadermanto and Pak Kadir for their great collegiality and their wonderful friendship. I hope you've learned a little from me. I know I've learned a tremendous amount from all of you. Terima kasih.
Okay, let's give applause to. Thank you very much, Ibu Sangeeta, for the very comprehensive presentation. And now we will give the opportunity for the participant to ask the question. Bapak dan Ibu dapat mengajukan pertanyaan di ruangan ini secara langsung, atau bagi Bapak dan Ibu yang mengikuti melalui link YouTube atau Zoom, dapat menuliskan pertanyaannya dalam bahasa Indonesia maupun Inggris pada kolom chat yang tersedia. Apakah ada Bapak Ibu yang ingin bertanya di ruangan ini? Oke, jika tidak ada yang mau bertanya, saya ingin mengajukan pertanyaan mungkin kepada penyelenggara, yaitu kepada Bapak Kadermanto. Yang saya tanyakan adalah, menurut Bapak, apa saja sih kendala-kendala yang terjadi selama persiapan sensus ini? Kita sudah banyak melakukan uji coba, dan menurut Bapak, kendala-kendala apa sih yang paling susah gitu untuk dihadapi selama itu? Terima kasih.
Ya, terima kasih Mbak Ayu, MC sekaligus penanya ya. Yang presentasi siapa ini? Tanya siapa? Ya. Sangeeta, there is one question from Mbak Ayu ya, but the question is addressed to me, not to you. Yeah. So I would like to answer this her question, and actually her question is about what is the difficulty or maybe or challenging and during the preparation of the Census of Agriculture 2023 this year. Yeah, as you know that this year we have conducted the pilot, yeah, in 4 provinces, and now we are preparing the report of the pilot, and I think later on, maybe in the 4th day, maybe in the 4th day or maybe in the 3rd day, maybe there will be presentation from the BPS Regional Office, yeah, from the location of the pilot of the Census of Agriculture. Yeah, I'm sorry, I will answer in Indonesian, Sangeeta. Maybe if there is. Oke, ya Mbak Ayu, kita sudah melaksanakan semua. Di sini yang hadir di sini adalah mayoritas tim sensus pertanian ya Indonesia. Jadi banyak pengalaman yang sudah kita dapat, dan tentunya utamanya adalah karena di sensus pertanian 2023 tadi seperti disampaikan Bu Sangeeta bahwa kita mencoba menggunakan apa yang sudah direkomendasikan dari WCA 2020 ya, bahwa ini merupakan hal yang baru di sensus pertanian ini. Jadi tidak seperti sensus pertanian sebelum-sebelumnya. Kuesioner pun kita sudah, tim kecil sudah mengevaluasi dari beberapa negara, dan yang terkini saat itu adalah dari Fiji ya. Jadi mana yang memungkinkan? Ternyata memang masih ditemukan beberapa istilah yang memang belum mengenai ya. Artinya belum biasa kita tanyakan, tetapi itu memang menjadi PR tersendiri bagi kita. Apakah kita akan coba dan melaksanakan ya. Jadi sebetulnya dari uji coba 1 diperbaiki, yang tantangan paling banyak di uji coba 1 karena memang waktu itu kita mencoba bertanya per peta gitu ya. Ternyata waktunya banyak sekali, akhirnya kita singkat bidang, dan ini juga dari pilot juga menyatakan per bidang juga memakan waktu. Nah, nanti akan kita coba apakah kita akan melakukan revisi lagi kuesioner tentang pilot dan gladi kotor. Dan tentunya dari kesulitan yang saat ini, selain waktu, juga beberapa kita akan mencoba KPI di beberapa daerah memang sinyal-sinyal juga belum memungkinkan. Nah, nanti mudah-mudahan Pak Romsi bisa membantu menjawab juga ya dari laporan-laporan yang didapat, beberapa lancar, beberapa terkendala ya. Tapi mudah-mudahan saya tetap optimis nih Pak Romsi, di pelaksanaan nanti tidak ada kendala yang berarti, mudah-mudahan harapannya gitu kami sampaikan, karena dengan KPI maka kita bisa mendapatkan hal yang maksimal yang bisa dapat. Dan dari sisi petani memang petani sedang responden terutama adalah bingung ya. Ini apa ya, memang ketika melaksanakan persiapan sensus pertanian, maka kok kami tidak tahu ada kegiatan ini ya, sehingga memang mereka berharap itu diadakan segera sosialisasi. Nah, ini juga rangkaiannya dalam kegiatan ini ya, nanti setelah launching sekretariat, kemudian launching tagline, kemudian launching theme songnya ya, lagu resmi sensus pertanian, maka pada saat itu juga diharapkan teman-teman seluruh Indonesia sudah bisa melaksanakan sosialisasi dengan segera sensus pertanian ya. Beberapa masukan tidak hanya dari responden tetapi juga dari teman-teman pelaksana BPS daerah ya, untuk bisa melakukan sosialisasi baik kepada kepala wilayahnya ya, lingkungannya, RT RW, dan juga memang saran bagus juga harus menggandeng para kelompok taninya begitu. Nah, ini masukan luar biasa sejak itu ya, kita jujur memang kita belum mengarah ke sana, meskipun ketika kedepannya ada harapan ke sana begitu ya. Jadi terutama di dalam persiapan ini tentunya juga yang terkait anggaran dari persiapan memang sangat terdampak dari anggaran yang namanya refocusing untuk kegiatan COVID ya sebetulnya ya. Jadi anggaran persiapan yang sebetulnya cukup banyak pertemuan ya, kemudian dari sisi itu sehingga kita harus mengurangi strategi. Maka kenapa kegiatan uji coba 2 itu hampir sempat tidak bisa dilaksanakan karena terjadi refocusing sampai keempat, semua kegiatan di stop, tetapi di detik-detik terakhir kita bisa memaksimalkan anggaran yang ada sehingga terlaksana, sehingga uji coba kedua yang harusnya dilaksanakan sebelum gladi kotor maka dilaksanakan berbarengan, khususnya di Karanganyar kemarin. Jadi sebetulnya jujur kuesioner yang digunakan di uji coba 2 di Karanganyar itu sama dengan di gladi kotor karena waktu sudah tidak memungkinkan, tetapi paling tidak harapan kita melaksanakan uji coba 2 itu sekaligus anggap saja itu sebagai gladi kotor dari perbaikan nanti bersama untuk mempersiapkan gladi bersih di tahun 2022 nanti ya. Jadi saat ini memang sangat kemarin kendala yang utama adalah tentang anggaran persiapan yang sempat terjadi refocusing gitu ya. Jadi refocusing kegiatan yang sudah kita rencanakan itu juga terkendala kemarin terkait sama PPKM level 3 sehingga sempat kita vakum. 1-2 yang kegiatan hampir tidak bisa dilaksanakan juga terkait tentang in-depth terkait urban farming dan juga tentang in-depth millennial farmer atau petani milenial ya, yang harusnya segera dilaksanakan di DKI tetapi terpaksa mundur ya tadi harapannya, sehingga banyak pertanyaan di daerah-daerah lain, apa kriteria dari urban farming dan petani milenial gitu. Meskipun kita sudah dapat ya gitu, tapi beberapa itu dilaksanakan sehingga setelah gladi kotor kemarin ya. Jadi menumpuk di akhir, tetapi paling tidak di sisa waktu yang ada di bulan Desember ini kita akan segera melaksanakan pertemuan kembali untuk merestrukturisasi atau membuat perbaikan dari hasil gladi kotor. Gladi kotor juga alhamdulillah dari 5 provinsi, 7 kabupaten kota sudah mengirimkan laporannya. Nah, untuk kita summary apa yang perlu diperbaiki dan apa yang tidak. Insya Allah tadi yang disampaikan Bu Sangita di akhir terkait yang utama, memang kita tujuannya sudah selaras dengan apa yang kita sampaikan, bahwa nanti diharapkan tadi ada farm based SDG indikator, itu diharapkan di Census, dan kita akan laksanakan itu sebagai laporan Mas Reza dari FAO nanti dari 4 indikator. 2 indikator akan dilaksanakan dari Census, hasil Census lengkap, yaitu 231 dan juga 51. Sisanya itu akan dikumpulkan melalui sensus lanjutan di tahun 2023 akhir dan juga 2024. Ya, jadi intinya kalau saya boleh ringkas nih Mbak Ayu dan Bapak Ibu sekalian, kendala-kendalanya terkait memang waktu persiapan yang kelihatan kita kecil mepet, tetapi sebetulnya karena memang adanya PPKM yang berkepanjangan ya, sehingga kita tidak bisa leluasa bergerak. Pertemuan kita skenariokan yang tadinya langsung ke lapangan bertemu secara in-depth dengan petani-petani, sehingga kita laksanakan secara virtual ya, sehingga mungkin yang menjadi tidak maksimal, tetapi kita bisa masih mendapatkan yang kita laksanakan secara virtual, maka bisa laksanakan secara virtual ya. Dan di terakhir-terakhir kita alhamdulillah bisa melaksanakan paling tidak network planning yang kita susun, paling tidak di sensus network planning yang sudah ditandatangani di akhir tahun 2020 oleh Kepala BPS, itu program kerjanya sudah dilaksanakan sampai dengan 2021, di akhir 2021 hanya terjadi pergeseran jadwal ya. Ya, harusnya uji coba 2 itu yang dilaksanakan sekitar bulan Juli Agustus, ternyata hanya baru bisa bergeser dilaksanakan bulan September. Ya, ini tentunya perlu kita siasati nanti, menyiapkan dokumen-dokumen terkait alasan pengunduran ya uji coba 2 begitu. Jadi tapi secara intinya bahwa semua program-program yang dilaksanakan di network planning di 2021 itu sudah terlaksananya ya. Sekarang laporan uji coba 2 sedang dalam tahap penandatanganan ini ya Mas Reza. Kalau memang sayangnya untuk yang laporan uji coba, laporan gladi bersih dan sebagainya masih dalam bahasa Indonesia nih Mas. Kalau memang memungkinkan, kalau memang nanti bisa dialih bahasakan, ya kita mohon dukungan dari FAO ini ya. Saya berharap nanti dari uji coba 1, kemudian uji coba 2, gladi kotor dari 5 provinsi, 7 kabupaten kota bisa terlaporkan, terdokumentasikan menjadi satu laporan tersendiri. Tetapi memang saat ini sayangnya semuanya masih dalam bahasa Indonesia. Gitu. Nah, nanti tetap kami akan sampaikan ke tim Mas Reza di FAO, mudah-mudahan bisa translate nanti apa yang menjadi permasalahan, dan kemudian apa yang saran-saran dari teman-teman regional office itu bisa diteruskan kepada tim Sangita dan juga mungkin FAO Roma untuk perbaikan ke depan. Mumpung kita masih ada waktu. Dan sebagai informasi, PKL STIS sekitar bulan Februari nanti itu juga topiknya adalah sensus pertanian 2000, membantu kita apa saja yang nanti memungkinkan bisa diberikan tim STS kepada kita, baik dari sisi persiapan termasuk sosialisasinya, kemudian dari sisi pengumpulan datanya, atau mungkin informasi lain gitu ya, akan dilaksanakan di Jawa Barat. Mudah-mudahan kita bisa mendapatkan ya. Nanti saya berharap ada teman-teman FAO juga kalau memang memungkinkan pengen melihat, paling tidak mudah-mudahan kita segera Mbak Corona ini biar segera sakinah mawadah warohmah gitu ya. Mudah-mudahan nanti kita tidak akan mengawal terus gitu kalau sudah sakinah mawadah warohmah itu, sehingga Mbak Corona ini bisa berdiri sendiri, hidup mandiri dengan nyaman gitu, sehingga kita juga bisa untuk melaksanakan atau memanage diri kita sendiri, sehingga apa yang kita laksanakan, kita angan-angan, kita rencanakan bisa dilaksanakan tepat waktu dan tepat sasaran. Begitu Mbak Ayu. Mohon maaf kalau jawabannya tidak mengena kepada hatinya Mbak Ayu, tapi paling tidak itu yang saya miliki saat ini ya.
Ya, okay. Bisa beri aplaus dulu untuk jawabannya. Terima kasih Pak atas jawabannya. Sepertinya kendala-kendala yang kemarin itu agak berat juga sih ya Pak ya, tapi semoga nanti ke depannya kita bersama bisa memperoleh solusi dan mungkin mitigasi dari kendala-kendala yang belum bisa terpecahkan. Baik, tadi saya baru saja mendapatkan kabar baik. So, Ibu Sanggita, we just get good news that our Chief Deputy Statistician, Bapak Habibullah, have joined us in this meeting. So, I want to give the floor to Bapak Habibullah, maybe to give us some speech. To Bapak Habib, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ayu, Pak Darmanto, Pak Romzi, Bu Sanggita, how are you? Thank you for a nice presentation, Sanggita, on WCA and any support given to us in preparing our census before 2 years ago, I think. On behalf of BPS Indonesia, I do really appreciate, hopefully our great cooperation and collaboration would continue in the future. Your support is making me optimist to do census in 20 and 23, Sanggita. Okay, thank you, Sanggita. Do you think we need to adopt all things of WCA recommended in WCA, Sanggita?
You know,
Or there
I
is-
have a, I have a
or there is a room for our customization?
Always room for customization. And, you know, I have a great deal of confidence in your entire team. I think they're in really good shape to determine what elements can be adopted. Of course, the guidelines, even what we label as essential, we recommend that they're essential. And I think they're covered already from what I've seen of your last census questionnaire. But very definitely, Indonesia has some very specific features that other countries don't. You know, you're a country of many, many islands. So there's factors that are very unique and specific to each country and specific to Indonesia that need to be addressed. So my personal advice is trust in the knowledge and expertise of your expert. Where FAO can help, you know, particularly if you want connection to other countries that face similar challenges or similar opportunities, my team and I are here to help make that connection.
Okay, thank you, Sanggita. Ya, Mr. Ya, Ayu, makasih Ayu. Mudah-mudahan nanti Marpaleni ini nanya nih Marpaleni. Siapa ya Ayu ya?
Terima kasih kepada Bapak.
Sanggita, we have a participant from regional office. All of province. Okay, thank you Ayu.
Terima kasih kepada Bapak Habib and thank you to Ibu Sanita. I just curious about your experience during conducting maybe you were one of the we can call it like the project manager or something on the WCA 2020. And based on your experience, have you ever found a country that maybe we can call it maybe not the perfect, but they do a good job in conducting the WCA recommendation? And can you please share it with us?
I would say Indonesia is a very good example from the last WCA. You know, honestly, each country is unique. So if I was to give examples, it would be specific to that particular country. There is one example I will share, however, and it's as important that the country followed it as the source of the advice. When Timor-Leste did their first agriculture census, they had hired as their lead international consultant an agriculture statistician from India. Highly respected statistician who has provided technical support to other countries in the past, including Myanmar and Nepal. And what he basically advised was, in addition to following the WCA methodologies, If the country wanted to get accurate measures of crop area, they might want to do a subsample of holdings and actually do physical measurement of crop areas using GPS devices to get plot boundaries. It wasn't cheap because, of course, you need your enumerator to actually go into the field and measure the plot boundaries. This was a methodology adopted from India. Now, one of the reasons we haven't yet got all the data downloaded and analyzed, but one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is it may be something BPS wants to consider. What we hear consistently is one of the biggest challenges in the use of satellite data is having good in situ or ground truth data. And the agriculture census may provide an opportunity. So whether it's something that the country wants to do across the census, or there's interest in picking select crops, or even select crops in select regions, it's one way to better train your Earth observation data algorithms, but it also becomes a really important precedent to share with other countries. And I'd say rather than necessarily following everyone else, Indonesia is so far ahead in the use of technology in so many ways. I think you have an opportunity to once again be a ground setter and to take some of the elements that we may have learned in various conferences from other countries, but really to make them your own and give more insight to the world. I could see in another 5 years Indonesia being at the forefront of providing technical assistance, at least in terms of sharing its expertise. So this would be my general advice. Over.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Ibu Sangita, for the answer. And I think we are all hope that Indonesia can contribute more to the agricultural statistics for the world in the future. And for that, I think we need the good collaboration between the BPS and also FAO. Okay, do we have another question maybe from the participant here? Jika ada Bapak Ibu yang ingin bertanya, Bapak Ibu yang mungkin menyaksikan lewat live itu, ya, ya, silakan kepada Ibu Ari.
Thank you, Ibu Sanita. We have one question. According to your explanation, thank you for the highlight that you explained to us. I think our waiting is very important for us for preparing the agriculture census. And in your opinion, your advice about the risk mitigation according to technology and data validation for the agriculture census. Thank you.
I think there's a few different risks that come up in technology use. One, of course, is the failure of technology. The second is the failure to use it properly. Second is the easier one to rectify because it can be done through training. So one type of technology that will be widely used is CAPI. Unfortunately, this is not new to BPS. You have your own in-house CAPI applications, which means you have your own in-house training programs. So I think the team is well equipped to rely on its historical knowledge to make sure that your enumerators are properly trained. In terms of technology failure, the same thing would apply. And technology often fails when you're in remote areas, when batteries run out, when devices fail. And again, I think there is sufficient expertise in the data collection aspect using CAPI on how to address this. But a good part of it is to have a backup plan, so you can never completely throw away paper questionnaires. And in fact, in remote areas, if I recall correctly, CAPI is not planned absolutely everywhere. There will be a hybrid approach, both paper-based and digital tablet-based questionnaires. In terms of data processing, again, I think one of the key things is to make sure that you have good data transmission, where you do use paper-based questionnaires, the appropriate checks or the double data entry, because the first time an enumerator is going to write on the questionnaire, then somebody has to input that data into a computer system. And you want to make sure there's random checks to ensure that there's proper entry, but also access to supervisors who can address the questions, because often the data entry clerks are not statistical experts. Then, you start thinking about your processing systems, so basically, without going into even more detail, you want to lay out where technology is being used. Think about the risks that exist. What risks are actually going to be critical in creating delays, what are not. Then there's the very real non-technology issue, which is this pandemic we're in. We have a new variant. How is that going to impact your data collection? We saw in the United States, and I understand that the US is also involved in providing some technical assistance on technology use. We saw that when they did their population census, because of COVID, they had to delay their data collection. They used multi-mode data collection. So I think when you have discussions with USDA, it'll be important to get insights into how did technology become a solution to COVID-related delays or constraints in travel or face-to-face data collection. And again, I have a lot of confidence in your team because I've seen the speed at which information is absorbed, methodologies are tested, and then the adaptation that comes. And often in a less mature, a less expert organization, the adaptation ability isn't there to the extent it is with BPS. And of course, no one statistician can be an expert in everything, me included, but to the extent that I can connect the team with people who are experts in very, very specific areas, I'd be more than happy to do so. And I do strongly recommend that with the cooperation projects you have with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, you really leverage the experience and expertise they have. Because as with Indonesia, they're one of the 5 largest countries in the world, and with a great deal of historical experience and importance placed on the agriculture sector.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Ari, and thank you, Ibu Sangita. Apa masih ada pertanyaan lagi? Tadi saya melihat Pak Adnan sepertinya mau bertanya, Pak. Silahkan kepada Pak Adnan.
Yeah, thank you, Mbak Ayu. I have a question about SDG to Sanita. We know to measure several SDGs indicators in the agricultural sectors, in particular that 4 main indicators, 4.3.1, 2.3.1, 2.3.2, 2.4.1, and 5A1, as Pak Kadar mentioned earlier. Is it the indicators to collect the variables in a complete enumeration, or maybe it's be better to measure in survey or sample survey? In this regard, so the 4 SDGs indicator need to be collected annually in agris, or maybe it's just need to measure in a certain period of time, for example, maybe for 3 or 5 years. Maybe it's the question. Thank you.
If I can say, I think you've underlined once again my confidence in BPS, because you're proposing all the right solutions. When you have an integrated census survey approach, the census is not the best tool. You don't need complete enumeration. The times when we'll recommend using a census is when we know that there's very sparse intercensus surveys. So yes, please think about using your sample surveys rather than your census. The census is so important to collect structural information. A lot of the SDG indicators are not looking for structural information. The second part of the question was about frequency. None of these indicators are required on an annual basis. The change doesn't happen that frequently. So, for example, for women and men's ownership of agricultural land, 5A1, we recommend even up to a 5-year periodicity. And you do want to try and compile this indicator at least twice before 2030. The same thing for the smallholders. Now, certainly you might from the census, because you'll get size information on everything but income. You get the size in terms of number of livestock and the size in terms of land. This can help you ensure that when you do an intercensus survey to collect these smallholder SDG indicators or compile these smallholder SDG indicators, you have sufficient coverage of your smallholders. Chances are you will anyway, just because the plethora in any country, including Canada, including the US, including in Europe, of holders tend to be small. So yes, the frequency never annual. It can vary from 3 to 5 years, and I believe that FAO guidelines indicate what that range should be. And the AGRA surveys and the 50 by 2030 program also gives some concrete guidance on when you should be collecting data for which indicator. So not complete enumeration, definitely sample surveys with the approach Indonesia is taking, not annually. Thank you, and over.
Thank you, Kang.
Thank you, Pak Adnan, and thank you, Ibu Sanita. Is there any more question? Okay, I think it is not, right? So, jika tidak ada pertanyaan lagi, I think we have reached the end of today's meeting, and thank you for the participation from all of the participants in this room, and for the participants from the YouTube and also from the Zoom. I'm on behalf of the organizer, apologize for any mistake or inconvenience during the meeting. And I would once again say thank you to Pak Darmanto, Mas Reza, Pak Romzi, and also Ibu Sanita for the time. Okay, that is the end of today's session. We will see you in another session. Good afternoon, stay safe, and stay healthy.
Langsung hilang dia.
Oke teman-teman semua ya, hari ini kita cukupkan. Jadi mungkin ada pengumuman dari itu Mbak ya? Jadi kita sesuai random saja.
Udah.
Hari ini memang sampai jam tadi sampai jam 3 karena Bu Sangita itu ada hubungan dengan Timur Leste gitu. Jadi langsung mau terbang ke Timur Leste ceritanya. Terbang tapi secara virtual gitu. Jadi agenda beliau sebetulnya dengan asistennya ya di Tomar, tapi berhubung ada tugas yang di Timur Leste, maka ya kita bisa selesai lebih awal begitu. Ya karena memang maksimal jam 3 harus sudah terbang ke Timur Leste. Terbang secara virtual ya. Jadi untuk hari ini kita teman-teman semua kita selesai ya, mungkin yang belum makan siang bisa lanjut ya Mbak ya. Jadi plus belum gitu, pasti belum ada yang makan siang gitu. Karena belum sempat ada pengumuman tuh gitu. Saya kembalikan Mbak Ayu dan mungkin kita bisa next agendanya gitu ya. Terima kasih.
Oh ya, mau menyampaikan beberapa pengumuman untuk besok. Besok karena akan ada field trip, Bapak dan Ibu mohon
Disampaikan dulu nggak? Di Zoom, di close. Langsung saja.